Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we will be recapping the World Juniors for the San Jose Sharks. So in the end, it is the United States who ended up coming on top of the World Juniors, defeating Canada in the final game 2-0. Unfortunately, the one prospect who could have been on that United States team for the Sharks did not end up making it due to the fact that he had to sit out because of his roommate having COVID, that of course being Thomas Bordeleau, a player who I mentioned in my preview for the World Juniors. But the Sharks did have a few other players amongst some of the top teams. The first here is Adam Raska. He was on the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic did make it to the playoffs. Of course, out of the 10 teams that play in the World Juniors, only 2 missed the playoffs, so not a huge accomplishment necessarily. And then the Czech Republic ended up having to face off against Canada in that quarterfinals, and as such, they bowed out quite early. The Czech Republic as a whole played 5 games. Adam Raska only played 4 of those, mostly because he ended up getting suspended for one of those games due to something he did during the exhibition games before the tournament actually started. Otherwise, Raska, he ended up putting up 1 assist in the 4 games he played, and just in general, he was an okay, decent player on an okay, decent Czech Republic team. Never really a player who I was expecting to make much of a splash, and that ended up being the case. Moving on to some of the more exciting players, although I guess maybe not yet, we get to Team Russia. Bit of a disappointing tournament for Russia. They're usually a team that is expected to challenge for the gold medal on the year. Usually I would say it's Canada at the top and then maybe like a 2-way tie for second place with the United States and Russia. And, it seemed like that was going to go this way as well, though Canada ended up getting upset in that final. And Russia ended up not only getting destroyed by Canada during the semifinals, but then losing pretty handedly to Finland in the bronze medal game and only getting 4th place. Jaegor Espiridonov for San Jose did end up playing every single game for Russia, all 7 of them, but he went pointless. He was more of a 3rd to 4th line player for this Russian team, didn't play a massive role. So while it is still an honor to get picked to the Russian World Juniors team, he didn't necessarily use his time in the spotlight to do much of anything. On the other hand, the other Sharks prospect on the Russian team, that being Artemi Kniazev, did do quite well given the spotlight. In the 7 games he played as a defenseman, he put up 1 goal, 3 assists, and 4 points. And for a Russian team that only scored 1 goal in its last 2 games, that's a pretty decent offensive score. And also, he was a defenseman who the Russian coach Igor Larionov, who is of course a very, very decorated hockey player himself, relied on pretty significantly. Kniazev ended up getting some top pairing minutes, was leading the team in terms of ice time with his defensive partner for a couple of those games. And so it's always a great sign, especially at the World Junior levels where you're facing off against some of the best in terms of offensive opponents, at least in this age group. It's always good when your coach relies on you as a defensive force, and that's exactly what Russia did with Kniazev. So it seems as though he very well might be the 2nd best defensive prospect in the Shark system currently, only really behind Ryan Merkley. And finally, the 4th prospect for the Sharks on Team Finland. As I said, Finland had made it to the bronze medal game and defeated the Team Russia to get 3rd place in this tournament. They had a very, very close semifinals matchup against the United States, but just came up short in that one. So 3rd place, still not too bad. And the Sharks had Santeri Hataka for the 2nd straight year playing for that Finnish squad. He had the assistant captain mark in this one. 7 games played, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points for a defensive defenseman. That is pretty decent. And Hataka was 2nd place on the team in terms of ice time. And as I said for Kniazev, when you are a defenseman playing at this highest level for this age group and your coach is heavily relying on you when giving you a lot of ice time against the other team's top offensive players, it's a good sign moving forward. So Hataka, I had said Kniazev might be the 2nd best defensive prospect for the Sharks in their system behind Ryan Merkley. Well, Hataka certainly quite close. And while Kniazev was, the 1st pick for the Sharks in the 2019 draft, a 2nd rounder, but the Sharks' 1st pick, Hataka came much later than that, and yet he could be a bit of a diamond in the rough, a strong late draft pick for them. But that will do it for this recap. It wasn't, a lights out performance by the Sharks prospects during these World Juniors. I mean, there's a lot of teams. I mean, take a look at the 2 other California teams in the in the league. Both the Kings and the Ducks had some real standout performers. I believe the Ducks with Zegras had the tournament MVP in their system, so certainly not as great as those two teams, but then I guess that is the burden of competing for so long like the Sharks did. But this will be the final video before we finally get back to the game reviews with the Sharks playing in less than a week's time. Class dismissed.